Okay, so the number one reason why I left Tanzania is because I was getting scammed numerous times. Was I scammed? I left Tanzania and I've been back in the US for almost 2 months. And for me, it was the best decision that I could have ever made for my future and for my son's future. I was on Facebook and I saw that someone posted a picture of them holding up 500 T-shillings. It seemed like they were trying to say that's how much you would have to pay. You would only have to pay 500 T-shillings to fill up your car, which is, I think they said, less than 50 cents. The situation for me this time was a visa issue. And I'll go into that in another video. I just feel like it's so much to tell and I need to give the details of that. However, that situation was rectified for me, but at the last minute after I decided that I was leaving to go home. And there is, someone there in Tanzania that I believe would be great for diasporans to, to help them make sure that they get their visas and all the paperwork that they need, and to just, not get scammed, and someone that's trustworthy. As far as I am concerned, I did what was right for me and what was best for me. I had to say to me.
The first thing that I didn't like is the immigration process. When I went to Tanzania, I already imprinted it in my brain that you're allowed to, from the research that I've done, that you're allowed to have 3 months there and then get extensions, which is a 30-day extension. It's supposed to be 2 30-day extensions for free. But once I got to the immigration, they had us wait there for 5 hours after telling us they could give us that time period, and we only got 2 weeks. After waiting 5 hours, we got a 2-week extension. So I had to maneuver myself from there, and it was just not pretty for me. I left the immigration office like literally in tears, because I was just like, it's just this, I pick up on vibrations and energy, and it's just like the immigration people just felt like they don't want me here. For whatever reason, whatever judgment they had of me, I don't think they want us as expats there. And that's just the honest truth, you guys. Like, they were laughing at me while I was crying. Like, it was just not funny. Maybe it was just the immigration officers that I dealt with, but it was just like, oh, okay, yeah. So that was like one of the first negative experiences for me there. But yeah, I thought I could, stay there a little bit longer just to feel it out. Now, let me tell you guys, I never, ever had I had no expectations with coming to Africa. Like I told you guys, I had plans to move to Ghana. They changed their rules. I don't like how their president moves. So I decided to come over to go to Tanzania. Yeah, the immigration, like to have to leave every 3 months. I know this before going to Tanzania because it's everywhere. It's listed everywhere. But what I didn't take it to was the expense that it would be to travel from country to country. I thought maybe it would be a little bit cheaper, but clearly it wasn't. I just never fit in, and I've been me all my life. This is me, and I'm always changing and growing, but who I am at the core, I can't change. So if I can't vibe with the culture and I feel judged by the culture half the time, it's just not gonna work long term for me. So that's one of the bigger reasons why I left too. Most of the expats were couples or males. So I met a guy, he was there from Europe. He had a business in Europe, but he lived in Atlanta. He's from Atlanta. I was like, oh, hey, what's up? Come to find out, like, he was like bragging about how, he can get certain favors from a girl in the community for little to nothing. And I don't need sexual favors, but he was just bragging. And that's what he kind of like hinted at, but I didn't want to assume. But, like, I think guys sometimes come to exploit the, white and black guys come there to exploit the community if, they know like they can get a lot for little to nothing, from whether it's company, sex, whatever, like they know this. So they go there to sometimes exploit. So being that I met some cool expats that were males too. That right there was like a big, I don't fit, but I want to connect with like-minded people, and I also want to connect with the African culture and the African people, but because there was that language barrier, I couldn't connect with any of the Tanzanian people, and I'm sure that stopped me from meeting a bunch of good people, but I couldn't connect. So this was like a thing for me that I was just like, dang, you know, like it sucks. This is a bummer. It took a lot of effort coming to Africa, but I was just like, I just don't see myself happy here. I'm not happy. So I didn't know, like in my mind, I'm like, once I didn't feel welcome, I'm like, when can I escape? You know, because if you don't feel connected with the people, it's just like, what in the world am I doing here? Like, you know, I vibe with a few Tanzanian people, the ones who spoke English, and I didn't vibe with any of the Diasporans, actually, not for long. So, you know, that's just what it is.
Black Americans forced to leave Africa? I've come across so many videos recently of Black Americans claiming that they've been forced to leave Africa. And I begin to wonder, because not until recently, let's say for 10 years now, so many Black Americans have been going to Africa to try to reconnect with their roots. That's what they claim that they're going back to Africa to do, especially to Ghana. Ghana has made so many friendly policies to embrace Black Americans, to make them to come home, to attract them to come home and settle and invest in Ghana. And many other countries have followed suit. I've seen so many Black Americans taking DNA tests to find which part of Africa they come from, and they have gone back to Africa. They've been received warmly. We've seen so many videos of them being welcomed by the chiefs, by the kings, and they've been giving names. They've been naming ceremonies of so many of these celebrities. But I think because of that, the normal, everyday Black American have been coming to Africa, have been going to Africa for tourism, some of them going there just to see, like, because, you know, because of the way Africa had been painted in the past, so many Black Americans don't really know Africa. You know, in the news, they tell you that Africans live in trees, Africa is underdeveloped, there's poverty, there are many diseases in Africa. So they go to Africa to see Africa. And when they go there, they are shocked. They are wowed because Africa is so beautiful. We've seen so many videos of them talking about their experience about Africa, you know. But now I see so many videos of Black Americans saying that they are tired. They want to go back to America, and it's because Africans have forced them to go back to America. And when you listen to these videos, most of the things that I pick from these videos is that they can't understand Africans. They've got culture shock, and they talk about corruption, that because they hear their accent and they know that they come from America, there is that believe that they've got money, so anyone who comes across them wants to exploit them, and people are not so open and friendly to them because they feel that they don't understand each other, you know. So without much ado, let's take a look at a few of these videos of Black Americans who are tired of being in Africa and want to go back to America for good, and they claim that they are being forced to go back. Let's take a look at these videos. I need to come in on this one. I think this is not just a problem for foreigners. This is a problem for everyone in Africa. You know, the people who work in the airports, I don't know what's wrong with them, but the level of corruption in the airport is unbelievable. And I'll tell you, as someone who lives in the diaspora, who goes back to Africa from time to time, I experience corruption, extortion every time I go through an African airport. Not to talk of the airport of my country of birth. Like every time I go there, there is someone who is trying to extort money from me. My experience is so bad that sometimes I wonder if these people really care that I am a native from that place, from that country. They don't care. They don't really care. I'll give you an example. Okay, 2 years ago, I traveled back home with my kids, and we went back home. We got there just to leave the airport. 2 years ago was 2021, and it was just like after the coronavirus, COVID lockdowns, and all the countries were still having these restrictions. And when you come, you need to go to some part of the airport to get checked or to get tested if you've got the virus, because they were trying to control the spread of the virus. So when we got to the airport, immediately we got to the airport, there was a guy who claimed that, "Madam, I can help you to carry your bag." And I said, "No, I don't need help." He said, "No, I want to help you because you've got a baby, because I had a baby, and I had my other boy who was walking with me." And I said, "No, I don't need help." He was literally harassing me to help me. Why was he doing that? He wasn't doing that because he really cared to help me. He was doing that because he wanted me to pay him at the end of the day to give him some money. I mean, I told him I don't need help, but he was trying to force me to get the help. You understand? They do that to anyone whom they assume has money, especially when you come from abroad. It doesn't matter if you're Black American, if you're white, or you are from any other country. The fact that you're crossing the airport from abroad, they will harass you to get money from you, to extort money from you. That's just the first case. And when we got to the place where we had to do the coronavirus test, the nurses that were there, because my kids were already scared, they were crying that they didn't want to have a coronavirus test, because before traveling, we transited in Paris, and in Paris, they had the coronavirus test, and it was very difficult for the kids. So they didn't want to have any other test. So when we came and sat down, they saw the nurses, and they had seen that kind of scene in Paris already, and they started crying. So one nurse came to me and said, "Madam, I can help." I said, "How can you help? Can you explain?" He said, "I can help. I can make sure that the babies don't get the test, and you are going to pay me." I'm like, "Why should I pay you?" He said, "No, that's how we do it." I said, "Yes, I know that there is corruption, yeah, but I'm not going to pay. I don't want to pay. Why should I pay? I just want my kids to have the test," because I was much more concerned, because we were going to a country where the restrictions and the regulations on COVID wasn't that much serious, because as I had been talking with my sisters, my relatives, who were waiting for me outside the airport, and they told me that, yeah, outside there is no restrictions, there is no distancing, but we don't know why they're holding you in the airport, So when they were talking, I said, "No, I need to get the test, because you people are not following the rules and regulations. I want to know if my kids have the virus or not. We need to do our test so we can get the results." So you see, they do that to everyone. So if I wanted to play, I would have paid them and take my kids out without doing the coronavirus test. So they do this to everyone. Okay, the first time I traveled abroad, that was my first time. So when I got to the airport, there was this immigration officer, a man and a woman, old people, old enough to be like my father and my mother. So when I got there, I was thinking that these people are old, so they would treat me nicely, because I was just really young. I was a young girl, and I knew that, okay, this man is old enough to be my father, and he's going to treat me nice, because, he might have a daughter also, or he might have someone that he knows that is about my age, and he would just treat me nicely. But guess what? I had crossed the immigration. I had done all the checking. I've checked in my bags, and I was just going to wait in the waiting room to board the plane. And this man and woman came to me and said, "Madam, is there anything for us?" I said, "What do you mean?" Because that was my first time. So the stories are endless. These people literally seized my bag, and they told me that if I don't give them some money, I'm not going to board the plane. I was scared. I started crying because I didn't understand what was going on. And there was an old man at the side, and the man called me and told me, "You see these people? What you have to do is just to wash them." And I said, What do you mean by wash them?" he said, you need to pay them, you need to give them some money, you need to bribe them. I said, bribe? I don't know what I have to do. I don't have money to bribe them. I had my money that my parents had given me because I was going to study. I had to keep my money. And these people wanted me to give them a cut from my money. So this man told me that if you want to board your plane, you want to go peacefully and safely, just give them anything. And I had to give these people some money. So it's not about where you come from. It's more about the corruption. The corruption is so bad that they don't care about how you look, how you speak, and all that. It's all about the money. It's even worse when you've got a foreign accent. You look black, but you've got a foreign accent. That's a sign that you're from abroad and you've got more money. So they are going to do everything above and beyond to get you to give them some of that money. So that's the corruption. It's something that it's been so much so that it's now become like a norm in most of our ports, our seaports, our airports, all these places. They will hold you until you drop something. You need to give them some money. So it's not about that you are Black American. The only problem is that maybe because you've got an accent and it shows that you've got more money. So they want you to pay them some money. But I think that shouldn't be a big of an issue for you to say that you've been forced to leave Africa. Because I'll tell you, as soon as you cross the airport, you go to meet the locals. You go to the bar, to the pubs, you go to the beach, you go to touristic sites, you go to the parks. I mean, we've got really beautiful parks, beaches, and all that. You see all these things. You meet local people. But what you need to do is you need to work with the agents. Like, you need to sort out yourself before coming. You cannot just come, board a plane, and just land in Africa and expect that you will have a good time. You need to plan your trip. And nowadays, I've seen so many people online planning trips. So try to work with these people, because sometimes you work with someone who is home based, who is a local. They know how to go around. They know how to go about things. Like you just mentioned in this video, that you found someone in Tanzania who is going to help diasporans when they come to Tanzania. That's a good thing. And that's the kind of person you need to work with. You shouldn't just go on your own there. And another point is this. If you plan to go to Africa, I'll advise you, if you've got like a friend who is from Africa, who lives in America, it's good you go with this friend to Africa. Or sometimes you can go to that friend's family and they can take you around. It's that easy, and you'll be saved, and you feel at home. Because naturally, we Africans are hospitable. Forget about the corruption. We are hospitable people. We don't discriminate. And when you are in Africa, you will feel like you are at home because you look like everyone else look like you. I'll tell you this. Before I moved abroad, I never knew that people were being discriminated on how they looked, on how their skin color looks. No, I never, because I grew up and everyone around me looked like me. And even when we had tourists who came from abroad, we never treated them badly because they didn't look like us. Most of the tourists were going about their day, doing their thing, and no one really cared. Maybe one or two people, few people who exploit them because they don't know the price or they don't know how to go about things. But generally, they felt at home. So she claims that she couldn't fit into the culture. She couldn't communicate because of language barrier. And the immigration. Of course, like I already mentioned, the immigration officers don't care where you come from. They want just the money. And they do that to Africans as well. Also, moving from Ghana to East Africa, one thing you need to know is that in East Africa, most of East Africans speak Swahili. They prefer to speak Swahili, especially people from Tanzania. Because I've got so many friends from Tanzania. And when they try to speak English, they have got difficulties in speaking English. They always in between, they use Swahili in between. And they will tell me that they are more comfortable in speaking Swahili because that's their mother tongue. That's what they speak. They've been speaking from childhood to adulthood. So English is like a second language. And when they see someone from America who's got so the language barrier is obvious if you go to East Africa. So you should be ready to have that culture shock there, and a little bit or some sort of rejection from the Tanzanians. Not that they hate you, it's because they are afraid to make mistakes in English when they're talking to you, and especially when you've got the American accent, the Black American accent. With your accent, it's already very difficult for someone to understand you when you speak. They'll keep asking you, like, I beg your pardon, please, what did you say? What did you say? All these things, people it's not that they hate you, it's not that they're judging you, it's because of the fact that they can't understand. Also, they can't also connect with you. So if you say that because of language barrier, because of the immigration, you didn't feel like you belonged to Tanzania or to Africa. I mean, Tanzania is just one country in Africa. There are many other countries. So I'll just advise that if you want to go to Africa as a Black American, you should choose these countries where majority of the people speak maybe English, like Nigeria, Ghana, and Gambia. You can go there. People speak English. Most of the people there speak English, especially the people in the capital, in the big cities. They speak English. And I'll tell you something also. If you plan to move to Africa, you should be ready. You should be open. It's not just about you fitting in Africa. It's also about the African people who are in Africa know that they are not used to the big city life. Maybe you're from New York, from Atlanta. Those are big cities. Those are mega cities in America. We're talking about Africa here. Not all African countries have big cities. We have just dotted big cities. So if you go to a country, just know that not everyone is exposed. Many people haven't traveled out of Africa. Everything, most of the things that they know, they see it in the TV, in the media, but they don't have the same experience as you. So you coming to Africa and making it all about you, you're never going to fit in. And it's not just Africa. If you go to anywhere, any other place in the world, and you make everything about yourself, that I can't understand this, I don't fit in, and this and that, you're never going to fit in there. You need to be open. You need to be open to new people, new culture, new language. People do things differently from the way you know how to do it. You need to be open. And that's one of the major reasons why most of you come to Africa and you can't stay. You can't really fit in because you make it all about yourself. You can't make it all about yourself. Trust me. And another point that I want to talk about here is this. I've seen lots of videos, but I haven't seen anyone talking about it. You see, Black American women in America, you guys there have a different culture from Black women who are in Africa. So the Black men in Africa, when they date you, when you leave America to come to Africa, maybe for sex tourism or just to see Africa or get reconnected to your roots, when you come to Africa, the way you talk, the way you carry yourself is different from the way local African women carry themselves. We are more cultured. We are raised to respect the man. We speak differently, but you speak with authority. I mean, I don't know if it's because you've got your own money, you are an independent woman, and most of the modern Black women are different. They're really different. And for the African man, it's like a culture shock. Even for an African woman, it's also a culture shock. So most people are running away from this because this is not something they're used to. It's not that they hate you, they're not judgmental, but this is not something that they are used to. This is a totally different culture from what they know. So that's why they will they will pause for a moment before considering to be with you in the same space or be with you in the same rhythm. I don't know if you understand what I mean, but That is it. Another point is this. Older Black American women move back to Africa. They are single. I've seen a group of Black American women. They live in Kenya. I don't know if it's Kenya or Uganda. They live in Kenya, but they travel, they go around, they travel from place to place. These women were working in America, but they retired early and moved to Africa. What are these women doing in Africa? They are dating young boys. They are dating young boys who are young enough to be their sons. These are their boyfriends. This is something that is a taboo in Africa. People who do this do it behind the scenes. They do it in the dark because this is a taboo. This is something that we're not used to. But these women have come with so much money and they are dating young men in the open. But because they got the money to give these guys, it's like it's normal for them. And, women their age, 50-year-old local African women, see this like, it's a shock. And it's difficult for these women to relate to these Black American women, 50-year-old who have come to Africa and are just living wild and going after boys young enough to be their sons. So this is not about Africans not forcing Black Americans to leave Africa. It's something that we're not used to. This is a taboo. And most Africans wouldn't really embrace these. This is strange. It's not our culture. We are not used to this. So you making it all about yourself is a big issue. That's where the problem is. If we need to address the elephant in the room, we need to take responsibility for our actions. Everyone needs to take responsibility for their actions and be accountable. Because if you come to Africa to genuinely reconnect with your roots and learn how embrace the culture, embrace the people, you will do it genuinely. You won't be on the other end trying to claim that they didn't do this to me, me. Because this video, the first lady had valid points about the immigration. The immigration can frustrate you. Trust me, I've been through that and I just gave my example. But the second lady, I see someone who is all about herself. She doesn't care about everyone else. Yes, she also had immigration issues, but she talked so much about Africans judging her being judgmental. Come on. They're not judgmental. And the immigration officers laughing at you while you were crying, I don't know. Maybe it's just a mean person. That's one person, but you can't generalize that about all Africans. And trust me, I've seen so many videos in America. I see Black Americans going out of their way, chasing Black people from Africa who are in the shops with, I saw someone laughing at their accent that they don't speak well, they speak foreign. And even me, who creates content on here, I've had so much hate from Black Americans. They come here to tell me that they don't understand me. So it's the same. You can't go to Africa and then you make everything about yourself. If we need to live in unity and harmony, we need to learn how to embrace everyone else. We are the same people. We are from the same mother. We look the same. Black American, African, we are the same. One mother. We look the same. Don't let the devil, don't let Satan destroy us, separate us, divide us. We are one. We are one. If you plan to move to Africa, be open. Be open. Like I just told you, immigration, they don't care. They do it to everyone else. Even Africans like me, they do it to me. Why? Because they know that if you're moving abroad or you're coming from abroad, it involves money. And all they care about is the money. They want the money. It's not about they being judgmental, hateful, or whatever. No, it's all about the money. And when they hear your accent, oh, more money. So it's all about the money. It's corruption, and corruption is everywhere. I think corruption cuts across every country in the world, every continent, every hemisphere. There's corruption everywhere, but it's so bad in Africa. It's so bad. It's so bad, so much so that it's become a norm. And the people in the immigration, the airport, they feel like they're gods because you need to cross the border. And if you need to cross and get on board the plane, you need to pay them. If you need to come into the country, you need to pay them. So, whew,